Hello and welcome to the show. Today is one of those late night recordings, and I'm not in my regular recording space, so expect to hear some noise pollution in the background. So, on to the topic for today, and we're going to be looking at skills that business people need to succeed. Now, a little caveat before we continue. When I'm talking about skills that you need to succeed in business, we're talking about sales related skills, sales and selling related skills. And that's because the range of skills that people need to be successful in business are really diverse. You have those that are related to personal and leadership type factors. That's the kind of stuff that most people in this space, especially those who build their material around motivational issues, those are the sorts of things that they're talking about. Personal stuff, leadership, things that you need to be successful. Then you have the marketing communications related kind of skills or revenue conversation kind of skills. And those are the sorts of things that I pay attention to on this podcast, marketing, sales, promotions, those sorts of things. And then finally, there are also skills that are built around operations and administration skills, things around business planning, business management, personnel, those sorts of things. So, depending on how you want to chop things up, if you're going to use these three broad headings, personal and leadership skills, marketing communications or revenue skills, and then operations and administration skills, there could be any number of factors that you could be looking at that would make someone successful in sales. We're looking at dozens and dozens of skills. So, if we're going to keep it to sales related stuff, then the first thing that we'd have to look at, or rather, the first thing I would like us to look at is sales management. Yes, I know that's rather broad, but I would like us to have that as one important skill to consider. And the reason why sales management is an important skill that we have to consider, especially in the early days, is because, when you're starting off your business journey, you're either going to have to sell yourself or you're going to have to get someone to sell on your behalf. Sorry, one moment. Okay, where was I? Okay, so you either have to sell yourself or you get someone to sell on your behalf. And so sales management is not something that we can avoid. We can only defer the conversation for a very long while, and that is what a lot of people do. So, sales management really important. Before we start talking about sales management, we have to realize that sales plays an indispensable role in the growth of your business. Because if you don't pay attention to the sales aspect, without sales, without promotions, without marketing, without whatever it is that you want to call it, there's not going to be any salaries. You can't pay salaries. You can't pay dividends. You can't take your vacations. There's no wealth creation. So, without sales, nothing is happening. And how can we define sales management? Sales management is just overseeing or managing your business's efforts or your company's efforts to get into the market. All the things that you have to do with trying to establish relationships with other stakeholders, other distributors, build relationships with potential customers to try and get repeat clients or try and get referral, what's that word again? How should I call it? Referred income opportunities. That's, when you get other people to do, when you get other people to refer business to you, basically. So when you're trying to oversee and to manage all these activities, that is what we can call as sales management. Some people also call that sales operations. So over here on this podcast, we're going to use those terms interchangeably. Sales management, sales operations, the same thing. So we're trying to manage how we get into the market, how we build relationships with potential customers, with distributors, other partners in the market, how we get people to buy from us again, how we get them to refer their friends, family members, and associates to do business with us. Everything. That's all under the heading of sales management or sales operations. Now, sales management involves directing people. Well, essentially, it just involves directing people around all these activities that we have mentioned so far. So, the main questions that we tackle in sales management are: number one, how do we bring revenue in, or how do we bring more of it in? Number two, how do we manage customer relationships? And then number three, how do we get customers to send their friends, family members, and associates to come and buy from us in the future? So, if you have these three questions at the forefront of your mind, then, excuse me, then you are engaged in sales management. So, to answer these questions adequately, that's how do we bring in revenue, how do we manage customer relationships, and how do we get customers to refer other people to us to do business with us? It assumes that we, excuse me, it assumes that we know a few things, or that we've gotten a few things right. The first one it assumes is that we're going after the right people, that we know the right people to chase. And number two, it assumes that we are starting off the conversations with them the right way, whether we're trying to start these conversations online or offline. And then the final assumption is that we're skilled enough to manage these relationships to be sure that they're going to buy from us. So when it comes to managing customer relationships, we if you've listened to the podcast for any length of time, then it's not surprising that when it comes to managing customer relationships, we're trying to figure out if the customer is happy. We call that the gosh, I can't remember what we call it. Sorry, forgive me. The brain is a little foggy tonight. Anyway, so bottom line is we're trying to figure out if the customer is happy, if they're able to achieve their goals, or if they're able to achieve the brand promise when they bought from us. That's the customer success function. Yeah. So the second one is the customer success function. So, the brand promise, well, essentially, whenever people do business with us, they do business with us because they're expecting a result. So, in buying our products or our services, there's something that our brand promises. Okay, I think on the last episode, I think I mentioned Chioma Good Hair. That's from Real Housewives of Lagos. Yeah, I think so. Okay, so I'm not sure what her brand promise is, but I guess her brand promise is that if you buy her hair, then you're going to look ultra sophisticated and glammed up just like she is, and you're going to look like you're part of the right crowd, and you have that sophisticated and cosmopolitan look. So, if you are selling for someone like Joma Good Hair, then the first question is, are they happy with the wigs or with whatever it is that they bought from us? And then the second question is, we want to be sure that they achieve their goals, that they felt fly and sophisticated, and that that they feel fly and sophisticated, and that they achieve the brand promise. Essentially, what we promise our brand is going to do. Essentially, that was what they received. Then, when it comes to getting customers to refer friends, family members, and the associates, of course, we're also looking at whether they're happy or not, and we also have to look at whether they're willing to bring business our way. If they are not happy, sorry. Okay, let me take that from the top. So, we have to figure out, are they happy? Of course, this is something that cuts across a whole bunch of stuff that we talk about here on the podcast. And that's because if people aren't happy, if they didn't achieve the goal of doing business with us, then them coming back to do business with us again is a non starter. That's not going to happen because people work hard for their money, and there's no way that people are going to keep coming back to do business with a place where they're not getting their results and to waste their money. So let's not be surprised if this criteria keeps coming up over and over again, not just on this podcast episode, but on future podcast episodes where we discuss these sorts of things. So, are they happy? Are they willing to bring business our way? If they're not, then that means that there are a couple of problems that we haven't addressed, and we also need to figure out what kind of lessons that we can learn from dealing with customers, so we can improve the overall customer experience, basically, not just for them but for future customers. So if you're curious to learn about some of this stuff in more detail, when you're done listening to this podcast episode, then use the search function in your podcast listening app. That's the search within the podcast, and you can find episodes where I've done stuff on customer service, on customer experience, getting referrals, those sorts of things. So, sales management is responsible for dealing with all these questions that we have run through so far, and it's responsible for setting the targets and managing the teams, making sure that everyone is on their best behavior, make sure that everybody's playing from the same rule book. And that is important because consistency in messaging and how we approach the client and how we manage the client experience is really, really, really important. If you're doing things one way because you've created a certain brand positioning and business style, but you don't communicate that effectively to your assistant or to your manager or whoever it is that also sells on your behalf, then you guys are not creating the same customer experience. People could be getting top-notch service if they deal with you, and then if they deal with your store clerk or your store manager or your PA or whoever, however it is you choose to set up your business, they could be getting a different experience with them. So sales management responsible for setting those targets, whether it's just you or whether it's you and a team of one other person or a team of 2 or 3 or 5 or whatever, setting the targets, analyzing the data that comes from it, and then looking for opportunities for growth. So sales management is also the part of the business and is also the part of selling skills that is involved with providing training and coaching to the other people who sell for you or sell with you. And of course, like I said at the start of the podcast, we're assuming that if you're going to pay attention to the sales management function, you're providing the training and the coaching, it assumes that you already have the relevant knowledge, you have the relevant experience. And if you don't have any knowledge or experience, then what you're trying to do is you're just replicating freestyling, and you're replicating trial and error. These are things that are spoken against in the past over here on this podcast, that we should not be freestyling, because the problem with freestyling is you do something that works today, but because you're freestyling, you don't realize that that's something that works. It's good practice, and you should continue doing it tomorrow. And so it's going to be hit and miss, it's going to be on and off. And then, of course, you're trying to replicate that with your store manager, with your store clerk, with your associates, with your sales team, with your whoever that you have selling with you or selling for you. And that's the way that your results are going to be. They're going to be up and down and all over the place. So people try stuff, it works, you don't know to replicate it against the rest of the team. So they do well today, and then next week it's crap, and then on and on. So we can't freestyle. It's a bad idea to freestyle when it comes to sales, providing training and coaching. So we can't build these sorts of activities around people's opinions, because you're going to come today and give your own opinion about what you think works when it comes to sales and selling. And then when you're not in the office or when you're not in the store tomorrow, your store manager or your PA is going to come and give her own opinions or his own opinions on how things ought to work. And that's just not a good way of improving the sales function in a business. So effective sales management requires a combination of lots of skills, like I pointed out earlier in the episode. Yes, there's going to be some leadership stuff. Yes, there's going to be some communication stuff. You also need to have some analytical skills, and you also need to have interpersonal skills. But most importantly, we need to have a thorough knowledge of sales theory, sales processes, sales practices, etc., etc., etc. So, if you are responsible for sales management in your business or your organization, and deep down in your heart of hearts, you know that you're freestyling, or you know that you're just using idea, as we say in this part of the world, because you're thinking, how hard can it be to sell? Everybody can sell. If that is how you're managing your sales team, then connect with me on LinkedIn and let's see how we can get our money right, because what you're doing is an ineffective approach, and you ought to reach out with someone who has the knowledge, not just of the theory and the processes and the practices, but also has a good understanding of how theory, practice, and praxis connects to real world Nigerian context. So, if you're a manager in the bank, you're tired of shouting at your marketing teams to increase their deposits every week. All you do is you keep shouting at them because you know absolutely nothing about sales management. Then hit me up. If your wife makes wonderful cakes and you think that managing her Instagram handle for her is enough to make you guys millionaires, and that's all you have, hope is your strategy, then connect with me on LinkedIn. Let's say we can get your money right. So that's all for today. Remember, you can subscribe for free. The name of the show is Sales for the Nigerian Business Person Podcast. I'm available on Spotify, Google, Apple iTunes, Pocket Casts, Anchor, Overcast, any other podcast player of your choice. And you can connect with me on LinkedIn. The name is Tavishima Ayede. If you have problems with spelling the name, just check the podcast header on podcast bio. You'll see it right there. My name is there. The email address is there. So I'll catch you guys at the next episode.